So I am so happy to be here with all of you this morning, especially in the middle of our summer season where we hear such personal and moving reflections from lay folks. The sermons have been impressive and thought-provoking and make me think once again about what a wonderful church community we have. So many gifts, so many blessings, so much to be thankful for. But it's tough out there, isn't it? As other summer preachers have noted, in the world today, we're witnesses to the unfathomable impacts of war, extreme polarization in ideology and politics, ongoing racism and discrimination, and an erosion of ethics in society and government. In the face of this, we experiment with coping strategies like not watching or reading the news in order to block it all out, or alternatively, taking in every bit of news in an effort to try to understand what is happening. Some find it helpful to talk through the issues of the day, while others don't want to waste their breath because it feels futile to do so. We all respond in the way that's best for us, but still, we can feel overwhelmed and powerless. Kind of a dismal start, huh? How many of you participated in the Mondays with Jesus and Buddha series led by Tunada? Several of you. Over those 6 classes, Sunada, who's an ordained Buddhist minister, laid out a path towards equanimity that for me, felt comprehensible and seemed sort of plausible. I was glad when someone in the very first session asked, what exactly is equanimity and why do we want it? Sunada explained that equanimity is staying grounded and calm in the face of emotion, and that we want it because it gives us peace of mind. Much more could have been said, I was certain, but that seemed to satisfy the class for the moment. In the weeks that followed, we would learn that the foundational component of the Buddhist path to equanimity is knowing and really understanding ourselves. And that ultimately achieving that is what opens up the doors to compassion and wisdom and gives us full access to love, which is the essence of equanimity. Growing up in the Christian congregational tradition, I always learned that God is love and love is God, and that God's light shines inside of ourselves and in all others. And I learned that I can rely on God's care because God knows me fully, and therefore, I can give my difficulties up to God. As in Buddhism, Christianity also asks us to know ourselves. In the section of Paul's letter to the Ephesians that Andy read, Paul reminds us that we can strengthen our inner being with God's power, and with that power inside of us, we can comprehend the breadth and length and height and depth, and accomplish abundantly far more than we could ever ask or imagine. Knowledge, and self-knowledge in particular, seems to be an unlocking factor in both the Buddhist and Christian traditions, and of course, love for ourselves, for others, and the natural world is an essential tenet in each practice. Self-knowledge and love. I want to say quite obviously that Buddhism is a massive topic and I have learned just an iota about it. My sermon today is offered with that self-knowledge. And while many of you surely know a lot more than I about Buddhist practices and traditions, I still feel a desire to share what I took away from our Lenten class because it made such an impact on me. We likely all understand that the starting place for knowing ourselves is mindfulness, the state of just being aware of our bodies, thoughts, and emotions. It's the act of being present in the moment, taking in our current circumstances and our reactions to them without judgment. The more self-aware we are, the more we can self-regulate in the face of difficulty, which leads to a calming of the body and the mind. And that calmness increases our ability to achieve mental clarity and physical well-being. So much good comes from mindfulness, apparently. I recently reread my father's 1981 book called Zen and Christian: The Journey Between. It was eye-opening in many ways, and I was particularly struck by the evolution of the physical practice of meditation, or zazen, as he calls it, in the Buddhist tradition. My father talks about the importance of sitting on the floor in the lotus position. Can your knees bend like that? I know mine can't. Carefully counting breaths or repeating a mantra with hands clasped in a precise manner. I have usually thought of myself as a mindfulness dropout, perhaps in part because I felt I couldn't adhere to these now what appear to be old-fashioned physical stipulations around meditation. Our teacher Sunada stressed that when practicing mindfulness through meditation, it's most important to just be comfortable in some good sitting spot. You don't have to pose in a certain way or count or chant. Of course, you can if you want to, but all you really have to do is sit and notice what you think and hear and feel, and acknowledge those observations without judgment, as you led us earlier today. The mindfulness exercises that we engaged in over those 6 weeks have many similarities to centering prayer and welcoming prayer practices that we've learned here in our own church. Also, very effective ways, it seems to me, to dampen down our swirling thoughts and let our hearts lead the way forward. While we continued to experiment with mindfulness in the class, we learned about the 3 Buddhist boundless states that can help move us towards the ultimate state of equanimity. Those boundless states are loving kindness, compassion, and appreciative joy. Appreciative joy, we learned, is the ability to express authentic happiness for someone else. Each week, Sunada would help us to understand the meaning of one of the boundless states. We took them one at a time. And then she would guide us through a meditation to interact in our mind's eye with a variety of people while in that state. In every meditation, the people we met with were ourselves, a stranger, a dear friend, a difficult person, and then all of humanity. We tried to observe them without judgment and with open hearts. In each state and in each case, we offered the people we met a final blessing. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. Interestingly, when we met up with the difficult person, Sunada took a moment each time to remind us, I guess because we're human beings, that we shouldn't feel the need to blame, correct, or try to fix that person's thinking or behaviors. We just need to observe with open hearts. What we learned from that weekly practice is that mindfulness can organically transform into loving kindness. And then from that foundation, when loving kindness encounters other people's pain and suffering, it can automatically take us to a place of compassion. And when loving kindness encounters other people's happiness, we can experience appreciative joy, feeling happy about someone else's joy. Equanimity is on a higher plane than mindfulness and the 3 boundless states, When our kind, generous, and loving heart interacts with the full range of human emotions, from suffering to happiness, and when we can hold all of that within our own self-awareness, equanimity is what arises. The wisdom of equanimity cannot be achieved without the other states. It rests on the whole picture of mindfulness, loving kindness, compassion, and appreciative joy, a picture that we can develop through practice. On a practical level, the wisdom and perspective of equanimity simply means taking a breath, stepping back, and being grounded enough so we're not hijacked by our own emotions. As a matter of practice, equanimity can never be reached if we're holding on to feelings of hurt, anger, superiority, or resentment. In fact, the Buddha said, "All that we are is the result of what we have thought. What we are is founded on our thoughts, and we are made up of our thoughts. If we speak or act with an evil thought, suffering follows. If we speak or act with a good thought, happiness follows." As in Christianity, Buddhist equanimity is also about having faith that we can give up negative or difficult things to a higher power, and trusting that that higher power, whether it's God or nature or the Buddhist way or some other force, will keep us whole. Today's Psalm 145 says, "The Lord upholds all who are falling and raises up all who are bowed down. And the Lord is near to all who call on him, to all who call on him in truth." We can trust that God is aware of and attentive to our challenges. Yet in another way, equanimity is about realizing that it's not about us. It's about letting go of our small selves and our big egos. It's about acknowledging our inner struggles and knowing that there is someone or something that will take care of those things for us, those things that bog us down and keep us from being well, peaceful, at ease, and happy. Self-knowledge, love, and letting go. If we can stay in a place of awareness and loving kindness, it will inevitably guide us down the right path. All we have to do is be present. Wisdom, perspective, and ultimately equanimity are not things that just happen. They grow over time from a state of mindfulness and awareness. To be clear, equanimity is not cold indifference. It's not even neutral. And it's certainly not emotionless. In equanimity, we are still very engaged and responsive, but our egos have stepped aside. We actively interact, but it's not about us. We take it all in, but we don't get mired down in our reactions. 13th century Buddhist monk and philosopher Dogen Zenji said, "To know yourself is to forget yourself." He asserts that if we can learn to look clearly and honestly at ourselves, at our emotions, our thoughts, and who we really are, that we can begin to break down the walls that separate us from others. As an aside, this fall, our church will be offering a 3-session course called Disagreeing Well, led by Presbyterian minister and MIT chaplain Nathan Bartzi. The classes will focus on empathic listening and engagement with an emphasis on what he calls intellectual hospitality. It'll take place in the weeks leading up to the national election. Equanimity isn't passive, but active. It's not about fighting against reality or pain or suffering, but instead it's about jumping in and doing the best we can while we let go and let love. It's not about giving up and resigning. It's about being willing to keep stepping in, but always with an open and loving heart. Self-knowledge and love and letting go. The power of love is foundational to both Christian and Buddhist beliefs. The Bible stresses the critical importance of knowing oneself, mostly for the purposes of also knowing and loving God, who then will support and guide us. God is in us. In a Buddhist practice, knowing oneself places a stronger emphasis on the individual, but the egoless individual who is able to love others, because again, it's not about us. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness, loving kindness, compassion, and appreciative joy are not just about feeling good or being good, but together create a whole way of viewing life that is equanimity, that opens us up to a higher power and allows us to be an unencumbered force for good. Christianity helps us to know ourselves, to love God, our neighbors, and our enemies, to forgive and to have faith in a higher power so we can free up our hearts and minds to contribute to our communities and the world in meaningful and rewarding ways. Self-knowledge and love and letting go. Both traditions make sense to me, and I feel that I can rely on both traditions to help me navigate my reactions to the issues of the day, and also the personal challenges that I face in my own life related to caring for our parents, the pasts of our adult children, family dynamics, evolving friendships, and preparing for the future as we age. When my father wrote his book about practicing Christianity and Buddhism together, he found that he really had to explain himself and even defend himself because of the novelty and slightly controversial nature of the joint concept. 40 years later, Sunada says that one of the best books about practicing the two religions is written by the Dalai Lama himself. It's called The Good Heart, a Buddhist perspective on the teachings of Jesus. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease, and may you be happy. Amen.